board is not all seated yet. We're going to move down below to watch the presentation, and then we'll come back up here and open up the floor for any questions or comments. So without further ado, move down to the gentlemen, ladies.
What are we doing?
We're going to start with Dr. Martin Davies with the
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for coming out on this not-so-nice evening. Wasn't sure if anybody was going to come out when I saw how badly it was raining. So I give you a lot of credit for coming out here tonight, and we're happy to have you. So what we're going to do this evening is the bulk of the time is going to be used for the audience to be able to ask questions. I know some of you have written a few down and have the board answer your questions, or the administration, whoever is appropriate. But the first thing we wanted to do was present a couple of things to you which might cause you to think of other questions you'd like to ask us. The first thing being our comprehensive plan. Used to be called strategic plan, but now the state is calling it a comprehensive plan. And what it is a 3-year roadmap of the goals of the district, and with a lot more detail to it than what you see in the PowerPoint, because we simply wouldn't have the time, but we're happy to share more detail with you in paper form, because we do have that with us. And it has an action plan with who's responsible for doing what, and how we're going to measure our success in terms of our goals. So that's the first thing we're going to do. The state of Pennsylvania requires all school districts to have these plans, but they're thinking about eliminating that requirement, but that doesn't really matter to us, even though we wouldn't have that requirement. Maybe we would do it a little bit differently from what the state has us doing it now, but we would still do it because it's still important for any organization to have a plan and have some goals for where they want to be in the near and far future. So that's what I'm going to introduce you to right now. And Todd Davies, Dr. Davies, is going to help me. He really wrote a lot of this plan with a lot of input from many of our staff members, and we're still getting that input, so this is really a draft. Okay, so let's get started. And the first thing we start with in this plan is a mission statement. And a mission statement is supposed to tell about what the organization does, what it's all about. So obviously we're in the education field, so we're all about education. But it really should be something that people can remember, and it should be 25 words or less. So if you take out the Exeter Township School District, which is redundant obviously, and the rest of the words are just about 25 words. So the idea is here that we wanted to focus on academic excellence, and we also wanted to focus on social responsibility. We want our students, and we believe we have a tradition of academic excellence in our classroom, but we also want our students to be good citizens and to have a responsibility for being contributing members of society during school and also when they get out of school and become adults. So that was the main focus of our conversations about this. We also want to not just teach them, but inspire them and engage them in their learning, because we know that students learn more and become better students when they are actually engaged in what they're learning, when they interact with the content that they're learning, and also when they're inspired to learn. So we want them to be lifelong learners and to love learning and to be inspired by learning and also to be engaged in it. It's not just a passive act of listening to the teacher talk to them. It's very actively engaged in what they're doing. And we want them also to have integrity and to be leaders in their classrooms, but also leaders in their life, to chart their own path in life, so to speak, whatever that path may be, and to be successful in that path. So that's how we came up with that mission statement. Okay, the next thing is a vision statement. If the mission statement is about what we're doing, the vision statement is really about how we plan to do that. And really here, we focused a lot on staff. We focused a lot on educators, on the people who are in our classrooms, our teachers. And the reason we did that is we believe that they are the key to our students' success. We know that. We don't just believe it, we know it. We see it every day. We've lived it for many, many years. So our focus is on staffing our schools with the best possible people that we can find. And then we're also going to have them teach our students to become independent learners and creative thinkers. That's what we need in the 21st century. They have to not just have knowledge, but they also have to think creatively. They have to solve complex problems. They have to create new solutions of their own, and they have to do that in a very collaborative way. We also want them, as I said before in the mission statement, to be responsible citizens. And the other thing for us that was very, very important, and that's our connection to you. We want our citizens to view us as a source of pride in their school district. What I love to hear is when people say, I live in the Exeter School District and we have the best schools around. That makes me feel great, and then I know that our community has pride in their school district, and that's one of our goals. Our shared values are what makes us believe what we believe and what are the fundamental things that we want to stand by no matter what. So in our shared values, the first thing we say is all kids can learn. However, they don't learn in the same way and in the same time, so we have to provide the context for that learning to occur. And that's really what this is all about. The other thing is the shared responsibility. We can't do it alone, so education becomes a shared responsibility and a collaborative effort between the school, the community, the parents, and very importantly, the students themselves. We want to create that responsibility within each student because we can do so much to help them learn, but they need to do the rest. So they have to be responsible for that. And accountability. We're all accountable for student learning, from myself to the principals, to certainly the teachers, the teacher aides. Everybody who works in a school system is responsible for student learning, and not just those who work there, but also the families, the parents, everyone else connected to that child is responsible for their learning. But again, once again, the student themselves is responsible for their own learning. The environment that we provide for our students is critical to how well they learn. So they need to feel safe, they need to feel that they're respected, and they need to respect others. They need to feel tolerance toward others, and they need to feel empathy. They also need a sense of resilience. Things are tough. Life is hard, school is hard. There's a lot of things that get in the way of learning, but they need to be resilient so they can overcome some of the obstacles that they will face. Again, going back to community, we believe that the school is a vital part of the community. This district, we feel, is a vital part of Exeter Township. And again, going back to the pride, we want all of you, all of our citizens, to feel pride in our school system and to have our citizens feel that they are valued for their contributions, because you all contribute to the efforts that we make to help our students learn every day. In terms of our curriculum, we need to have our curriculum reflect the knowledge, the attitudes, and the habits that will make students successful in the 21st century, which is much different than maybe it was 20 or even 10 years ago. So they need different habits and attitudes. As we were saying before, they need to be actually involved in their learning, they need to be creative, they need to be in every way contributing to their own learning, and also to be able to solve problems and collaborate with others and communicate well. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Davies right now, and he'll talk about our first goal.
Good evening. Just for some background quickly, we have 4 goals here in Exeter. We came up with these during a couple of faculty retreats last spring and through the summer months. And as you can probably imagine, a school district like Exeter, there are a lot of priorities. And we went through a process where we evaluated 13 different areas that the Department of Education asked us to focus on. And through deliberation and going through a process of small groups working together, we prioritized 4 of those. And the first one is a goal called continuous improvement. And just for some background also, each goal has strategies attached to it, and each strategy will have an action plan that we can use to deploy that strategy. There are steps in that action plan. The handout that we left out at the table out here, it gives us about 1 year, give or take, of each strategy. So after the administrative retreat in June of each year, we can go ahead and reevaluate those action plans. So the first one is continuous improvement. And as you can see, there's a quote from Jim Collins, who's an author who writes about school improvement and other great things. And this is about continually improving. The idea here is that we can never just sit back on our laurels. We have to always continue to look at what we can change, how we can improve, and we don't want to become complacent in any part of our system. So as the budget crisis or the budgeting changes, and as our student population decreases or increases, we want to make sure that we are continuously looking at that. So the strategies that we're employing for Goal 1 are employing learning-focused collaborative meetings. These are also called PLCs, Professional Learning Communities. We started these this year, and our teachers, through an Act 80 Day, early release days, I'm sorry, and the teachers were assigned to small learning communities, and they discussed and they collaborated around their goals. So this year, Dr. Martin put together a survey to evaluate the PLCs, and we're going to make some changes to those next year as we go forward through this plan. Okay, number 2 is redesigning and aligning all resources for our prioritized goals. So the idea is that we have as our budget crisis becomes more significant, we have to evaluate the priorities of our needs here. Excuse me. I apologize for this. Okay, I apologize. As we realign our priorities to support our goals, the idea is that we're looking at our resources and our scheduling and the way we're using staff in order to maximize their inputs. Additionally, we're having our principals look at we're looking at our principals and our building goals in order to I really apologize for this. Our principals are looking at their goals, and they are aligning their goals to our district goals. So as we see these 4 goals in front of us, we are also looking at our building goals so they're aligning to those. Excuse me.
Okay, so in the second goal, we go back again to the teacher in the classroom, because we know that the teacher is the biggest factor that can impact student achievement and help our students grow and succeed and flourish. So we also know that what teachers do in the classroom is critical. We have a lot of data, a lot of evidence that tells us what works and what doesn't work in teaching strategies. So we need to make sure that our teachers are equipped with the knowledge of the best strategies that have been shown to have the most success and to have the most impact on student achievement. So therefore, it is incumbent on us to make sure that we support our teachers, we provide professional development, we provide training so that they know what the best strategies are and what the evidence is that shows that they work, and we give them the resources and the support and the time to try these strategies out in their classroom and to be able to adapt them to the needs of their particular group of students. So that's why our number 2 goal is focusing on teaching and learning. Okay, so among the strategies for this goal are some of the things that we've already started. These are not just new things we're inventing because it's time to do a comprehensive plan. These are things that we know are the best things to do, so we're going to do them anyway. We're just putting them now in the context of a comprehensive plan. So we have what's called balanced literacy for our younger learners to help them acquire the skills in reading, writing, spelling, all the things that go with language, all the things that go with speaking, listening, reading, writing, spelling, grammar, phonics, all of that put together. So when you put that together in a classroom, it becomes balanced literacy if you're doing all of those things with the best possible strategies. For the older kids, I'm going to jump over across to reading apprenticeship. Our older readers need to become literate in how to use complex textbooks and readings that go along with the secondary learner in junior high, senior high, and beyond at the college level. Because reading a novel is not the same as reading a technical textbook. And there are different strategies that students need to use, and even very, very good readers don't always know that. They approach a chapter in a textbook the same way they approach a chapter in a novel. And they don't know that there are different ways to tackle that. Productive disposition and 21st century skills. Really what that term productive disposition is, it's about students understanding the value and the importance of education in their own life, and also realizing that this work is hard. However, if they work hard and keep at it, they can be successful. So we call that self-efficacy. And we need our students to have that, or else they're going to give up pretty quickly as soon as they encounter something difficult. And 21st century skills, we talked about those. Kids today, we don't even know what careers we're preparing them for, because those careers may not even exist today for some of our younger kids, even for some of our high school kids. They may end up in a career that doesn't even yet exist, because things are changing so very, very quickly. So those 21st century skills that we know will be needed are the ones that we've talked about before: the creativity, the problem solving, the application of knowledge. Communication is going to be huge. Be able to collaborate not only with the people they work with, but perhaps on a global basis, or on a national basis at the very least. Another strategy is STEM, and that's our science, technology, engineering, and math initiative that we are beginning next year here at the high school with an engineering course. That is also going to be important for our 21st century learners, to equip them to prepare in high school for careers and for post-secondary education. And some of you may already know a lot about that already. It's something that Dr. Davies has been working a lot on. And then the PA Core Aligned Curriculum. Pennsylvania is altering, the whole country basically, are altering the standards by which our students are measured. So we have to make some curricular changes to alter what we are doing to make sure that we are aligned with the new higher expectations. And in all of our subjects, we need to make sure that we're doing that so our kids, again, have a better chance to succeed. And really, that just means aligning our curriculum with the expectations of the world right now, with the expectations post-secondary and what they'll be expected to do in college and out in the workforce. Okay, goal 3?
Apologize for that before. Dr. Martin and I, we're going to flip off back and forth here. So now goal 3 is a goal that we put together as a combination of a couple of different goals. One of the things that the board asked us to do was look at different ways that we can measure how successful we are here in Exeter. As you all know, there's a lot of emphasis put on our school performance profile. Our school performance profile will measure the gains our students are receiving by measuring PSSA scores or Keystone scores, or those types of things. And oftentimes in the media, we hear a lot about the school performance profile, PSSA scores, Keystones, etc. So the idea here is that we're going to determine different ways that we can measure success, things that go way beyond just student test scores, but also thinking about the things that are actually in the classroom, teachers in the classroom. Each department will be looking at different things that they'll be working on, our facilities department, our business department, our technology department, etc. With that is the positive climate. We are currently employed a bullying survey from grades 4 through 8, also in the 9th and 10th grade in high school, I believe. Is that right? Oh, just 10th grade. Okay, and the idea here is to find out the degree that bullying is prevalent in our schools and to find ways to address that. So that's one part of climate, and our buildings will have goals that go beyond that as well. So even though it's a big strategy, a big goal, we really have just one strategy for that, and that is to develop and communicate and employ those various indicators of success. So the board and the administration and teachers, principals, etc., will be looking at how we can measure student learning beyond the school performance profile. Also climate, family and community support, and student participation in the learning environment. So that's our only strategy for goal 3.
All right, and I'm going to conclude with goal 4, which is fiscal responsibility, and then when I'm done with that, I'll segue into introducing Ann Geidish, our business manager, who's going to follow it up with some details of our budget in preparation for passing our budget this year. So once we identify all of our priorities and how we're going to measure them and all the things that we've just been talking about, what our goal is here is to focus our resources, our staff resources and our budgetary resources, and focus them on the things that really, really matter and prioritize. This goal is really about prioritizing. Now, we have been prioritizing to a great extent in a sort of a less formal way over the past several years. And here's how we've done that. And maybe Mrs. Geidish might have a couple comments about that as well afterwards. Every time, for example, someone retires or leaves the school district for whatever reason, we evaluate that position to see whether it is needed, because we have, as many of you know, we have had experienced a decline in our enrollment as well in recent years. So do we still need to fill this position? Is this a critical position to our mission? And even if it is a critical position to our mission, do we have enough capacity to take care of that mission without having to employ someone else? In other words, do we need to replace a teacher who is leaving when we've had 30 less kids at that grade level in that particular school? So maybe we don't. So if we could still keep our numbers reasonable, so we're not worried about impacting student learning, and we see that we can do that without replacing a teacher, and it doesn't have to be a teacher, it could be an aide, it could be a secretary, it could be an administrator. But we have done that every single time someone has left a position. We have really looked hard to determine what did this person do Do we need someone else to do that? Can someone else do that that already is employed by us? Or must we hire another person to replace the person who left? So in doing that, and we lost, I'm not sure how many employees altogether, but probably about 25 teachers, several administrators, and I'm not sure how many support staff. About 10 support staff. All right, but that adds up. So we have looked to do that whenever possible. Not only that, but we have also looked to see how we can change schedules, and we're still in the process of doing that, to possibly still preserve things that we think are very important, but maybe if we change a schedule and alter times a little bit, we may be able to save a little money. And also, we've asked each of our principals to cut back on things that are non-critical in their buildings. Many of them have, and some of them, you know, have given up things that are really valued in their school, but they're not necessarily critical to our mission. So we have had to distinguish between what we need versus what we want. And obviously that becomes sort of a subjective thing to some extent, but if we keep focusing on the mission and our goals, as Dr. Davies said, and keeping those in front of them, then the other things, you know, what isn't a part of those, well, you know, those are up for grabs. We've done a lot of cutting already, but there's no question that we're going to have to continue to do more. So we look to really prioritizing our needs to be able to do that and not impact our critical mission. All right, so I think I sort of talked about the strategies. Determine district priorities based on stakeholder input, and develop and communicate budgetary procedures based on identified priorities. And Ann is going to talk in just a moment about the budget and, you know, how we communicate about the budget, because she does a lot of that, and also how we develop our priorities and how we develop our procedures for passing the budget and so forth. So, let's see. That is the last thing.
Good evening, everyone. My goal this evening was to try and give the audience who don't typically come to our budget meetings a background on our revenue sources, expenses, and the process we go through in the budget. So this evening, I just want to start by saying that the information, the data here, is as for April 7th. That was our last Business Function Committee meeting where we discussed with the board members changes to the budget. We're meeting again on May 5th at 6:30 in the administration building, and I invite you to come because we have a more detailed discussion about different things. Tonight's more of a summary overview, although it's quite a number of slides. I just really wanted you to get a better understanding of what our school business operation is about. Tentative adoption of the budget is May 13th, and then final adoption is June 17th, and that's when the millage would be set. For this year, we are currently showing a deficit where our expenses are about $355,000 more than our revenue. That's a mistake there, the RTL. In any event, we had adopted a budget with a deficit of $1.8 million, and the deficit now is at $355,000. A lot of things changed throughout the year. When we adopted the budget last year, We had contracts which were not negotiated, so there were things in the budget which we had to include to anticipate increases in different areas. Our utilities weren't as high as anticipated, so all of those things really bring down the deficit. At the current time, at the current millage, we're looking at a $2.3 million deficit. Our millage is 30.795. Since the preliminary budget, which was adopted in February, we've brought the deficit down by about $1 million. It was about 3.3 million. Our general fund budget revenue currently for 14-15 is $66 million. 70% of that is local sources of revenue. 29% is state, very minimal amount we receive in federal sources. 47 million is what our total local revenue is. That's with no property tax increase for 14-15. What drives our major source of revenue, which is property real estate taxes, is our property assessed value. Not really good with this clicker. In 14-15, we have $1,397,000,000 of assessed value. You can see where we took a launch here, where there's a lot of construction in this area. What happened here, there's a little turbulence. There was a lot of appeals of regular and commercial properties, residential and commercial properties. But we're seeing some positive things here where the appeals have reduced considerably. So this is a good thing that our assessed value is increasing. Again, just to give you an idea of what our real estate tax revenue is in the budget for next year, with no tax increase, it's $40 million. Again, your assessed value and your millage drive this revenue. This is the millage since 08-09. To give you an idea, percentage-wise, what the increases have been, since Act 1 of 2006, the school districts in Pennsylvania are limited to the increase in their real estate tax by the Act 1 index. And that's based upon the statewide average weekly wage, as well as the employment cost index from prior years. So looking back in 08-09, our index, Exeter's index, was 5.5%. With the downturn in the economy, those two indicators went down, where you can see Exeter's index had declined. That is the dotted line. But it's important to point out that the increase in millage that the board adopted was below the index in 9-10, 10-11, and through to 12-13. 13-14, this current year, the millage went up, a 0.1% less than or more than the index. We took an exception. Besides being limited to the index, there are costs that rise above the index, and they include special education, debt construction debt, and retirement contributions. Those are 3 exceptions that you can apply for so that you can raise your millage above the index. But again, to emphasize that Ford held in line on tax increases in all those years. Our adjusted index for 14-15 is 2.7%. Just to give you a flavor of some of our other major local sources of revenue, earned income tax, that has stayed relatively stable over the years. Business privilege, transfer, interim, delinquent taxes. To illustrate what happened with the recession, our interim, once new construction came to a halt, that source of revenue also declined. Transfer tax that had declined over the years, but we're seeing a bit of an increase with this current year, and we're projecting a bit of an increase for next year. State sources of revenue are about 29% of our total general fund revenue, or about $19 million. What I'm trying to display with this chart is some of our sources of state revenue. Special education funding, this line at the top is flat, and we've been flat funded for a number of years. Property tax relief from the gambling funds, and those that you have a homestead, farmstead relief, these are the funds that are divvied up and actually reduce your tax bill. The state then again provides the source of funding to the district as a state source. Transportation subsidy, relatively flat. Debt service, reimbursement, we issue general obligation bonds for capital projects, and they are reimbursable projects, school buildings, and the state will assign a reimbursement rate, and we do receive some reimbursement for the debt that we pay, the principal and interest that the district pays on the bonds. The state also reimburses school districts for about half of what we pay to Social Security. Anyone who's employed pays 7.65% of their wages. The school district, any employer also has to pay that. The state will reimburse us about half of that. Employer retirement contributions. This is the source that is launching dramatically, and that is because the expense that the employer is responsible for is also launching dramatically. You receive about 50% in that category as well. The Accountability Block Grant is being replaced by a block grant called the Ready to Learn Grant, and we've included it in the budget, but it's not a done deal at this point. So basically, most of the sources of revenue are flat. The few that are increasing would be the employer retirement contributions, about $700,000. We have about $563,000 between these two sources, two grants. And then our debt reimbursement is increasing a couple $100,000. Just a few words about the Ready to Learn funding. Total $744,000, which is really an incremental $563,000 more to our state funding. And our plan for the use of these funds includes some of the new initiatives. The STEM, Project Lead the Way. There is a new position in the budget for a math STEM coordinator coach, which these funds could be used for. We have a laptop initiative, one-to-one, which will start with the 9th grade for next year, and different consulting fees. The Accountability Block Grant, the purpose of that grant was to fund full-day kindergarten, provide for classroom size reduction. That grant was about $490,000 in 9-10, and it was $180,000 this year. So we are continuing to fund some of our full-day kindergarten initiative, and the balance will put towards that as well. So that's the current plan, but we don't know at this point how it all is going to shake out until the state's budget is adopted in June, if it does happen. Federal sources of revenue, $525,000. That includes Title I, Title II funds, and medical assistance. So year to year, it's about a $1.4 million increase, and again, as I said, the majority is the state's reimbursing us for retirement, $700,000, and for the Ready to Learn grant, $563,000, and some additional debt reimbursement. Exeter's enrollment, and I'm sure a lot of you are aware that it had peaked around 0809, and even before that, early 2000s, when all the construction was going on. But we did peak, and currently we are looking at a downward trend in enrollment. The red line is PDE's projection, and it's really based upon live births and from census information. But this could change. It depends on, what additional construction. There are maybe about 120, 130 vacant lots that could, be available for new construction. But then you also have the transfer of property too. So that's something that we will have to continue to watch. But as Dr. Martin had mentioned, as enrollment had started to go down, when we do have positions that are open, we evaluate the need for them, especially with retirements. We have not replaced a number of positions. And again, without impacting the program. That's always been the school board's goal. General fund expense. We're currently looking at an increase of $3.3 million, or 4.8%. Again, it relates the majority of it to employee benefits, an increase of $1.8 million. There are some increases in purchase services. We've seen more of an increase in tuition costs related to special ed private placements of students, contracted services for their special needs. So those are the majority areas of increase. This pie chart gives you an idea of where the district expenses fall. Obviously, employee wages as well as benefits are the majority of our expenditures. And our principal and interest is about 14%. Excuse me, 16%. Salaries and benefits. Employee wages for next year projected about $29.4 million. If you could look at the trend here, and this chart also illustrates it, we really have been holding the line on staff and costs, on contract increases. Again, not filling positions really has helped the budget considerably over the years. The red part of the bar chart is the employee benefits, and you can see how that is increasing dramatically. And again, it is because of a couple different factors. Group health insurance. That is the benefit, health insurance for full-time employees who are eligible for it. In the budget, it's about a 7.7% increase. And again, retirement. From 1.3 million in 0809 to 6.2 million in 14-15. And again, half of that is reimbursed. That's what I had showed you in the revenue side, the state reimbursing. So healthcare and retirement are two of the main drivers in our increases in expenditures. And this is the employer contribution rate, the retirement rate. This is what is causing such a launch in this expense, from 4.76% in 0809. In 18-19, it's projected it'll be 31.28%. So in 08-09, for every dollar that someone had earned, the district was paying 5 cents as a contribution into the Pennsylvania School District Employers Retirement System. Next year, 14-15, we'll be paying 21 cents per dollar of retirement wages. But then again, we do receive half reimbursement. And that's what this slide illustrates. This is our payroll for the district. These are the rates of retirement contribution. On a quarterly basis, we pay that gross amount to the retirement system, and the state in turn reimburses us half. So on a net basis, these are the rates, and this is the net of it's the gross expense less the revenue, but this is the increase year to year. If this is not in the millage, in order to pay for this mandated obligation, you either use your fund balance or you take away from some other area. Because this is a silo that it's mandated. As that silo gets bigger, other silos are going to suffer in some way. Some of our other expenditures by major object. Professional technical services. We contract with the IU, the BCIU, for different things, mainly for special education services. Social worker, psychologists, hearing impaired, vision impaired. We also contract for physical therapy and occupational therapy. That falls into that category. Those costs have gradually increased over the years due to the increased needs of our students, especially our special education students. 500 object, other purchase services. What's included in there are tuition costs, and specifically charter school tuition costs. That line item is about 1.3 million in the budget. But again, the private placements of special education students, those students that we cannot serve in this district, they're placed in another education agency, that is driving that increase as well. Supplies, books, fuel, we have done our best to hold the line. We are lower than we were back in 08-09. As Dr. Martin had said, we asked the principals and the staff to really just think about what you need and what's not nice to have. One thing we do have included in this category is a new math adoption. So that's why that cost is higher. So the chart itself, you can see, illustrates how we really have tried to hold the line and keep those costs flat. Equipment and property, this fluctuates year to year based upon what improvements are needed and what equipment. Before the recession, the budget itself was able to absorb more capital projects within the general fund budget, but as we were trying to struggle with limited sources of revenue or increases in revenue, we really delayed projects or funded them with capital project funds. This presentation just focuses on general fund. We do have additional capital project funds. But again, this current year, a large part of that was to replace the drive-in on this building. Next year, the stadium turf needs to be replaced. And in addition, the one-to-one laptop initiative is included in the budget for next year. As I said earlier, the school district issues general obligation bonds to fund major capital projects and some smaller ones. We also lease some equipment, generally technology. So this is what these categories are related to. The blip that's right there was because in a year where there are excess funds, on occasion the board would approve transferring them into a capital project fund. And that is how it's a methodology for putting funds aside for future capital projects. And having those extra funds in this year probably resulted from doing a bond refinancing where we reduced our interest payments for that particular year. So we are looking right now at a $2.3 million deficit. Expenses are increasing year to year, $3.3 million. I mentioned earlier about the index. Our index for 14-15 is 2.7%. Our current millage is 30.795. You apply that to the 2.7%, and the index could generate 0.84 of a mil. Our value of a mil is about 1.3 million. So with the tax increase of 2.7%, we could generate an additional 1.1 million in property tax revenue. That would be our limit if we were to stay at the index. The exceptions, we did apply for a pension exception as part of the preliminary budget, which we were approved for. We are not approved for any other exception. These are the only exceptions that school districts can apply for now. The value of that is 0.42 mils. So the maximum that the school district could raise taxes would be 4.1%. But there are other limitations, which I'll get to shortly. Again, as I mentioned, what the drivers were in the budget, in the expense side. Pension, number one, we have contracts, we negotiated increases. They're modest, but they still cost money. Healthcare premium increase, debt service, new math curriculum, the STEM project, although some of those we are funding with Ready to Learn. We just hope that we do get those additional funds. On the revenue side, as I mentioned, state reimbursements going up $706,000. Here's the Ready to Learn, the Act 1 index increase of 1.1 million, and then there's the pension exception. So, $3.3 million expense increase, potential revenue increase is $3 million. That's if you raise to the max. So current year, again, $355,000 deficit. Next year we're looking at $2.3 million before any tax increase. Our fund balance in total at the end of this year is about $15 million. But there's different components to that. The board has made some commitments towards future capital projects that they would fund with general funds, which we'll use some of that as part of this budget. We have assignments. The commitments are a board resolution, and they could be undone through board resolution. Assignments really are for, number one, we look at the next year's budget cycle and determine what the deficit is going to be, and we establish that as an assignment. We also are assigning for future costs for the one-to-one in 15-16 and beyond. So overall, 13% with a deficit of $2.3 million in 14-15. That unassigned fund balance, which is this line here, goes down to 6%. Other capital project funds for future project funds, we have a number of projects slated throughout, through 18-19, and those funds will be used up. We have funds remaining from a Watton Creek project, but that project's not done. There's still site work to be done. So those funds will be tied up until that work is done. We have a food service fund. It's a proprietary fund. In other words, it's tries to break even, but there again, that fund is faced with the pension obligation launch as well, because they are part of the system, and that will use up their fund balance too. Just focusing on the top section here, looking at what millage increase, 3 different scenarios, 2%, 2.7, 4.1, maximum 4.1 would give it a millage of 32, bring the deficit down to 616,000, an index increase of 2.7, 1.8 million in a deficit, 2%, 1.4. Sorry about my spacing here. But one of the key points here, a school district cannot, the budget that a school district adopts, the unassigned fund balance, cannot be more than 8%. So that is another thing that we have to deal with when we're trying to put this budget together. This is to illustrate what different tax increases. The average value, assessed value of a property is about $108,000 in this district. So at a 2% increase, or 0.6 mils, it would be $65 additional per year. $89 if it increased to 31.6, and $131 if it was increased to 32. And the bottom section gives you an idea of what the increases have been over the past few years. The board has held the line on the increases and the annual increases to taxpayers. And I believe that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Are there any questions? I have two pre-submitted questions here, but rather than skip right to these, are there any additional questions on the budget, on the strategic plan? All right.
Can the board ask questions?
Yes,
All right, thank you. On the comprehensive plan, on goal 2, it includes literacy, science, technology, and math. But I notice the arts and social studies aren't here. How is that? Because you're satisfied with the state of the arts and the social studies curriculum that we have now, so that won't be revised as part of the plan, or?
You're
talking about the strategies, Dave?
Yeah, strategies for goal 2.
I guess in a sense you're correct. The major focus areas are the strategies that we're using. That doesn't mean that those are the only strategies we're going to be using, but those are the ones that are going to receive the greatest focus. I guess that's how I would explain it. Todd, do you have anything else?
Well, the goal 2 is for teaching and learning, and the different initiatives that we have ongoing right now would be reading apprenticeship, writing to learn, balanced literacy, STEM. Those are instructional strategies that we're employing within teaching and learning. The arts, we're not employing specific strategies for those areas. This is
Yeah,
what we're
that's a
looking
good point, yeah.
Okay.
Although the reading, well, to your point, something else to add, the reading apprenticeship strategy really applies to all subject areas.
Mm-hmm. So with the productive disposition.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
I know there's been a lot of discussion around House Bill 76, and I wondered if we could just sort of get maybe an overview on what impact that might have on the district. I know that the community is excited about it because it looks at the elimination of, or at least eliminates our ability to levy property taxes. But I'm wondering, from the perspective of the School Board Association of Pennsylvania doesn't necessarily support House Bill 76, and I'm wondering if we do move at a state level to getting rid of the property tax, what challenges or issues and what might we face as a school district?
Well, and Ann or Todd jump in if you have any ideas about this, but I think the biggest fear about elimination of property taxes is the ability to have a steady revenue, dependable revenue stream from year to year that is not going to be that we know will going to be growing and or at least staying the same and not decreasing one year. So I don't know that what they're looking at is going to give us that. And some of the legislators themselves have told me that they don't have confidence that the schools are going to be able to get what they need by making those changes to eliminate property taxes, such as increasing sales tax and et cetera, et cetera. So there's it's a little iffy. We'd love to see property taxes go away. That would be absolutely wonderful for us, for all of us as people who pay property taxes, but also it would make this process a lot easier, but only if we can depend on sufficient revenue from year to year. And I've seen no evidence to show that we could do that. Russ, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I thought this thing was on here. Anyway, just a couple of comments. And one is that probably the #1 legislative priority for the Pennsylvania School Boards, the State Association this year and last year and the year before was the establishment of some sort of a formula where school districts could be certain of what kind of funds they were going to get. So we need predictable. In order to plan a budget, obviously you need to have something that you can hang your hat on. Now, I just read an editorial, I believe, in the Harrisburg Patriot last week that claimed that when they went out and crunched the numbers on the components of the bill as it exists, schools came up $2 billion short. So that's a concern. One of my concerns is a historical concern, and that is when you let the legislature have anything, you don't know whether you're going to get out of it what you need to get out of it. The very first sales tax in Pennsylvania, when it was instituted, was 2%. And it was, in fact, I think it still reads in the law, it is specifically earmarked for just education. And you've seen what happened to that. The legislature got a bundle, they got a pile of money and obviously started using it for other things besides education. So I think we need something that's predictable. I also think that we need to, and I believe the legislature is doing that now, they need to do their homework and make sure that if we eliminate property tax and we do it successfully, there's going to be a revenue source that can at least hold us to where we are as far as revenue is concerned. If you would eliminate all property tax in Pennsylvania, it's about a $12 billion hole. $12 billion is a big hole to fill when you're talking about something particularly as unpredictable as sales tax. The revenue numbers right now in Harrisburg are just dismal. 2 weeks ago, they announced the revenue numbers. They were $100 million short of what they had expected. And that $100 million shortfall still had included an $80 million early transfer from state store profits. So they were really $180 million short. So I think we need to be careful as we go forward with this. I think we need to look into numbers. And as I said, I think that's the reason that you've seen the legislature, so we say, not move as quickly as a lot of us would like us to see when it comes to property tax reform.
Russ, is there any time frame for the passing or for the moving from the Senate to the House? I mean, is there any time frame for HB 76?
Not that I'm aware of, although you saw I think you probably saw the article in the paper today, which seemed to indicate that it was on fast track, that it could move. I have my doubts as to how fast it moves through the House. When Jim Cox's bill was voted on in the House, there was a great deal of activity the morning of the vote, and all of that activity were from groups, formidable groups, that had a lot of influence with the legislature, that were anti-property tax reform.
Well, I think one of my great concerns about this business of replacing property taxes with sales taxes is that it is very unpredictable. And as any state legislator can tell you, the state was supposed to fund education at a 50% level. The federal government was supposed to do their share, and then we were supposed to do the rest. But as you can see, our district itself is funding the education of our children at 71%. So the legislature is not doing their fair share. And I think that is the big problem. And another problem is that I don't see anything, right now businesses pay property taxes. I don't see anything in what I read in the paper that's going to replace the money that they are supposed to contribute to education in this proposal for the legislature. So as I see it, most of the taxes will be paid by we the people. And that this ploy of eliminating property taxes is going to be a very windfall profit for corporations. Now, if that is fair, I'd like to know that.
These are the questions and comments. Yes, sir.
Question. Of course, I think it came up at the last meeting where there was an expense approved like for almost $200,000 having to do with the cost of cyber schools. What I was curious is our administration looking at anything to try to attract the kids back into the high school and help get a cap on the cost of cyber schools?
It goes along with one of the pre-submitted questions, and I'll read this one also. You did me a favor, let me work right into this. Students who choose, the question from the audience, students who choose to attend cyber charter schools cost the district a large amount of money. I believe that's about $1.2 million. Is the number of students we're losing that way increasing or decreasing or remaining static? Do we know why the students have chosen to attend cyber charters? And if so, can we try to get them back? I'm going to hand it over to our superintendent.
Yes, we've actually done a lot of work in this area over the past few years. The first question, which was the first question, whether it was decreasing?
Is it decreasing or remaining the same?
Okay. As far as decreasing or increasing or remaining the same, I was talking to Mrs. Guidish about this before the meeting started when I read the question that was submitted, and it's kind of a moving target because, you know, it's up one month, it's down the next month, et cetera, et cetera. It's like a revolving door. Kids don't just go to cyber school and stay there. Some do, but not many. Because in my experience, it's more of an in and out. You know, they leave, and then maybe they'll come back, or they'll go to another one, or they'll come back to us, and then other kids will come in. So it's a moving target, but overall, it's about the same as it was last year, and pretty much the year before. So it's sort of reached a peak, and it's kind of holding steady. Now, do we know why they're leaving? Yes and no. I can't say we know in every single case, but to the extent that we've been able to determine why they're leaving, we do know in many cases why they're leaving. Sometimes it's for a good reason, sometimes it's not for a good reason. And those are the kids who usually do not do well in cyber school. Can we do anything to attract them back? We have aggressively been trying to attract them back. When students let us know, or let their school know, I should say, that they are planning to leave to attend cyber school, we meet with them, we talk to them, we talk to their parents if possible. We try to find out, you know, what can we do? Is there anything we can do to keep you here? And another thing that we have done, if they say no, we're determined, you know, our kids are going to cyber school, then we let them know that as of last year, we have contracted with Chester County Intermediate Unit, who has, well, actually for many years, they have run their own cyber school called Brandywine Virtual Academy. We have contracted with them to offer our students who are intent on going the cyber school route, to offer our students a cyber school curriculum under the name Exeter Virtual Academy. So if we have a family who is convinced that that's their best course of action, then we will let them know your child can remain a member of the Exeter Township School District and still attend a virtual academy or cyber school, and this is the one that we offer. And they have a good curriculum. They are excellent at communicating with the kids, figuring out if a child is struggling, what's wrong, what's going on, providing help with their teachers. They can get help online, they can get help in like a Skype type of a call. They can go there and get help. There's a whole lot of ways they can get help. And we also have our counselors that are able to support them as well. So they're still a member of our own school and school district. They still can graduate from Exeter if they successfully meet the qualifications of the Exeter School District and just take their courses online rather than in our classrooms. And that's one way. I think we have about, what, like 30-some kids that are now in our own cyber school. Is it somewhere around there? Somewhere around 30 kids or so that have come over to our cyber school. Some of them came from other cyber schools. Some of them just said to us, my child isn't coming to school every day. They don't like to come to school. I can't get them out of bed in the morning. Or in a couple of cases, my child is competing or in a sport out of state, or pursuing an acting career or a singing career out of state, and so is not able to attend classes, so they must attend cyber school. Excuse me. But they love Exeter, they want to remain a part of the Exeter School District, so this is a good solution for them. So we have attracted many of them back. But again, it's like the revolving door. They come back to us, and then, you know, we have someone else leaving. So it's kind of a give and take, but if they want to attend cyber school, I'd rather have them in our cyber school. It's about half the cost of the cyber schools that we're not affiliated with. So there's still some cost, but it's a much less cost. So we'd much rather have them there, and we know that the people there are very much on top of things, and they contact the student and the parent if the student is not completing enough of their work to stay on track and so forth. And I get copied on all the emails, so I know who's completing work, who isn't completing work, but it's an alternative. We did a couple of different things to find out why they are going to cyber school, in addition to, you know, trying to get them before they leave and talk them out of it and find out why they want to leave. We have the names of all the students in the Exeter Township School District who are attending cyber school, who are participating in cyber education. And we have surveyed them. We have also written them letters inviting them to come to meetings here. When we didn't hear from some of them, we made personal phone calls to every family who had a student in cyber school. We still had trouble getting a large audience here, but we did have a meeting with some of the cyber school kids and their parents, and they gave us some insights. For some, it's just a personal decision, or a religious decision, or a family decision. You know, as far as, you know, maybe they may have been homeschool parents who, when their child got to high school age, the parents couldn't keep up with the level of instruction that was needed for the more rigorous courses, so they opted for cyber school. So there's a lot of different reasons for it. But if there's no oversight by the parents, and if the kids are already turned off by school, it's not very likely that a computer is going to get them excited about it. So we often have kids that come back to us without having really made much progress in their absence. Hope that answers.
Did that answer your question?
Okay.
Mary Beth, did that answer your question?
Let me make a comment.
I
No,
like
go
it.
ahead.
No, go ahead.
You have the right first.
I
think you just turned yourself off.
just wanted to chat a little bit about the budget and what I propose to try to lead with a number of you folks out there in the red seats. It is my goal, sitting on this board, to actually cap the tax increases at approximately 0 this year. And let me tell you why I am thinking that that is possible. One of the very interesting phenomena of governmental accounting is that there are a lot of different statements where you see funds flowing in and you see funds flowing out. As Ann indicated, the biggest one is the general fund, but is by all means not the only one. There are capital reserve funds, there's debt service funds, et cetera, et cetera. When you take a look at the budget for next year, I think there's a number of items that I just generally want to call your attention to. As Owatin Creek winds down, Ann indicated that there's going to be some release of funds from that. That release of funds that is approximately unencumbered may be upwards of $1 million. A second issue that I'm probably going to argue is the position of a math and a STEM coordinator. I know that this year is a big year for math initiatives in Exeter, and there are being initiatives initiated at everything from K through 12. But from what I remember in a recent presentation by a number of teachers, that math curriculum is reasonably well contained and well constructed. And whereas before the teachers had a little blindness relative to what somebody else is doing, this curriculum is rather continuous up through the ranks, and it doesn't allow that same sort of flexibility or coordination that I think a math coordinator would be needed to achieve. That's approximately $120,000. Also, Ann, in the general fund budgeting adjustments, has in there special education fund adjustments as well as healthcare fund adjustments that total in roughly $700,000. So what I'm saying to you is that I can easily see that funds can be moved around and reallocated and reinstituted in directions that would actually eliminate our need for a tax increase next year. Now, the next thing I just want to talk very briefly about is the flexibility on the capital accounts. I still contend, and I know that it hasn't been finally resolved yet, but I voted against the bus barn. And I voted against that not because I don't think that maybe Exeter could stand a new bus facility, but I think that there truly has to be a prioritization here. And it does not fulfill any of my two requirements when I took this post, which was to enhance the educational excellence of the school, and two, to establish fiscal responsibility. I think that $2.5 million can be reallocated into something as simple as debt reduction. The one thing I want to caution this district, and I want to caution all you folks about, is that Exeter has a reasonably high level of outstanding debt. We don't talk about that a lot, but you see it in the debt service numbers, and you see it in the rating reports that talk about our higher than average for our size and revenue levels, debt levels. What I would like to do is reduce some of that debt going forward. Now, the final thing I'll say, and why I believe that holding the line on tax increases in the name of fiscal responsibility, holding the line on some new building, it's because of the chart that Ann showed about enrollment. I think Exeter, when I moved into this district some 13 or 14 years ago, was in a growth phase. Enrollment was projected to go straight up. And I always laughed that if the enrollment that the state and some other folks suggested would have actually taken place, this would have been one of the largest school districts in the country. That's changed. Enrollment has flattened out and actually begun to decline. With that, I think we need to do something more heavy-handed with reducing or leveling off the tax increases and directly addressing the debt. So I'm going to ask you folks that are in the audience again to pay special attention to some of these meetings, because I know this is not going to be an easy subject. My folks, my friends to the left are committed to excellence and the quality of the school district the same way that I am. However, we do have a different financial perspective, and that is going to be a case in point over the next couple of weeks that I'm going to need some help. Thanks.
Anyone else down the line?
I have a comment on charter schools. I just want to go back to charter schools. I didn't realize we had finished that topic, all right? But what I wanted to share with you is a couple of things. The charter school problem continues to manifest itself in different places in Pennsylvania in different ways. In a meeting 2 weeks with the Bethlehem School Board, what I found out was, as you've seen, most of our charter school students are students who get older into their school years, and then they decide that what they're receiving isn't for them and they move on. So we're sort of bleeding from the top. What's happening in Bethlehem, which I thought was real interesting, is the fact that every charter school in the city now offers full-day kindergarten, and there is not a public school in the city of Bethlehem that can afford full-day kindergarten. So once, my compliments to the administration for working hard to maintain full-day kindergarten, because what happens there is that's just a decision that if I'm a parent and I can get full-day kindergarten, I save $200 a week on daycare. So that's someplace we want to be. We want to be able to, I think we want to be able to continue to support a program of full-day kindergarten, because all the research, and I think all of you are familiar with it, all of the research in education shows you that those are the dollars that get the biggest bang for their buck as far as kids being successful in future years in education. And secondly, and one of the things I'd like you to carry out of here is, there is a flaw in the charter school funding formula in Pennsylvania. And we continue to ask the legislature to reform. They have not at all taken up real charter school reform as far as their funding formula is concerned. Charter schools should be funded at an actual cost rate, but they're not. The way they are funded is whatever a school district is their cost per year of education for a student. That's what the charter school is given. And not only are they given, but for a student with an IEP, they're given double. Now, the flaw is simply that I'm a teacher, I have 35 kids in my room, and my school district is paying $12,000 a year to educate a kid. So now I have 34 students in my room, and the legislature says that the cost of running that classroom just went down $12,000. It hasn't gone down a dime. It costs you that much to have the room, to run the facility, and to pay me and to pay my benefits. And that's where we're all really getting in big time trouble as far as, it's why charter schools are extremely profitable, and it's why public school districts are being bled, and resources, and very limited resources, are being taken away from them in no real sensible way.
I'd like to say a little bit about charter schools also. We got a profile on our school district and on charter schools. Now, all our students, I believe, go to cyber schools, cyber charter schools. Well, for your information, not one charter cyber school met any of the benchmarks that are new to the state. What's that called, Dr. Martin? The
School performance profile.
The what? School performance profile. That is new now. The state did a student performance profile. Ours is what, 87.5, Dr. Martin?
87.5.
87.5 out of 100. And every cyber charter school kid that leaves this district and goes there, none of those schools are producing anywhere near that. Some are 37%, 47%. Not one has reached the benchmark of 70. And yet, we are spending almost $1.5 million to send these children to failing schools. Then when they come back to our school, if they want to come back, then it's makeup time for our teachers. It is absolutely ridiculous. Charter schools are nothing but a big moneymaker for private corporations. Bill Gates and all them, Walmart, they all fund these schools, they all get the startups on them, and it's all about money. It's about destroying public employees and public institutions. And as you know, every one of us raise our hand and say that we must defend the Constitution of the United States and the Pennsylvania Constitution. No one that has a charter school, that's a board, does the same thing. They can throw kids out, they can say to kids, oh, well, you're not meeting our standards, go back to the public school, or they have a lottery, and they make sure that there's 2 parents in the family and things like that, so that they can pick their students. We don't pick our students. Anybody that comes through the door, they're in. We can't deny children, an education, but they do. And they are failing, and we are paying for it. And you are paying for it dearly, because the state doesn't pay a penny. They made the rule, and now they threw it all on local taxpayers. And I must say, in the spring of 2011, I wasn't on this board, but I came before the board, and I spoke about charter schools. And at that time, this district was paying $340,000, and I thought that was a lot. Now we're paying, so I disagree, Dr. Martin. We are about 400% more than what that was in 2011. when I came in the spring of 2011 to speak to the board on this issue. That's what got me involved, really, to come to be on the board, because it is absolutely horrendous that we as I don't care where you send your kid to school, but why should we pay for it, especially when you're sending it to a failing school?
It's a shame that you raised it 400%.
Not me, not me.
Ma'am, you have a question.
My name is Diane Walker. I have a budget solution. I am a food service employee of 31 years. I understand that the school board is trying to save money wherever possible, and I have an economical situation. I plan to retire June 2015. I have been a ServSafe certified for the past 10 years. Certification is good for 5 years, so I've gone through the process twice. Just so you know, certification is not mandated by the state. It is just what my supervisor would like me to have. I am a general cafeteria worker, not a head cook or assistant. I do repetitious work every day, making salads, sandwiches, and taking temperatures, as well as some of my coworkers do, and they are not ServSafe certified. My certification expires October 2014. I talked to my supervisor and told her since I will be retiring in 7 months, it would be a waste of money to get me certified again. The cost of certification is $179, $120 for my wages, $96 for co-workers to ladder up on my job, totaling $395. My supervisor said to me in a hostile way, I do not want to hear how much it will cost. So I will retire. She is going to spend another $395 again for the person who takes my position. Therefore, she will have spent $790 for my position for 7 months. As a taxpayer, I feel it is a waste of tax dollars. I called the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture Food Employee Certification, as well as talked to Joan Cook in charge of ServSafe certification at Penn State Berks. Both told me this is not mandatory for public schools. I'm not a cook. Joan Cook said it is for a business like a restaurant and is one safe serve person per building. My supervisor has 13 ServSafe people, including myself. My building where I work have 3. My supervisor wants me to study over the summer. At this stage of my life, to have to study and take a test is stressful for just 7 months. It is a waste of money. Even though my supervisor wants suggestions to save money, here is the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm sure the superintendent will look into that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to bring up, first I'd like to say, I like your line of thinking. I agree with you. Senate Bill 76 and House Bill 76. There has been several studies done on that. The funding is there now. When it first came out, questionable. But there were several independent studies done. The money's there now for that. And it was in the paper.
Excuse me, you're right. You go ahead.
I read the paper today. That's just an article in today's paper. And this has been going on for a long time. I've been paying taxes since '88. We all have to fund schools. And I know people paid longer than me, but 1988 I started. So we all fund school and we're all taxpayers, everybody up here. But this is a way to change the way we fund education. We don't need to keep putting it on the backs of the homeowners. There's a different way out there. Senate Bill 76 and House Bill 76, that's a way to go. It's a good start, back even when Sam Rohr started it. He's gone now, he moved on to other things. But he took the bull by the horns. In the meantime, we have our elected school board members. You had to deal with the budget, I understand that. We all understand it. But I'm tired of my home being used and the taxes going up every year for that. We need a different way to fund education. This is what the Senate Bill 76 is about. This is what House Bill 76, if it moves over to the House. That's what it's all about, a different way to fund education. What is it that people don't get? Why should I use my shelter, my home, where I raised my kids, and then have people always raising my taxes to fund education? That's where we're at today. We want to change that. That's what the bill is about. And I know there's a person on the board that's running for state legislature. But I'll tell you what, when I spoke to him when he ran before, I got a different view about eliminating school property taxes. Tonight, I kind of heard something different. But I'll tell you one thing, if you want to get elected in this area, you better want to eliminate the school property taxes and look for a different way to fund education. That's what it's all about. Think about it. Your home to fund education anymore? Get with it. That's your shelter. Don't use it anymore. I know you can't do that. We have to change it at the state level. And you know, someone up there is running. I was hoping that they had the same ideas that I did. And also, I'll tell you something. Currently, and for years it's been this way, we fund the Pennsylvania State Police. We fund our state prison system, the Department of Transportation, and many other state agencies. I don't get a tax bill on my home for that. A personal tax bill of $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 that I gotta write a check for. But yet we fund all these agencies that protect us. And they're all well paid. And I'm not against anybody making good money, because I made good money in the private sector. And I worked year-round for my money too. But I'm not against people making a decent salary, because you gotta make it today. You gotta live. But the point is, and once again, this is where we're at. You have the authority with the strike of a pen to constantly raise the taxes. And I saw the presentation. I don't disagree with you. I see the big numbers there. But I went to Harrisburg several times. I met with my legislators. I know them on a first-name basis. I think the funding is there. They showed it to me. It was studied. So to say that it's not there, I don't agree with it. And I'll tell you something else. Funding the education the way it is right now, and like I said, we're all taxpayers. I'm not putting it down if you don't pay taxes. I know you have to pay a tax bill too. But it's not the way to do it anymore. So that's why I'm saying that I do think that, and Senate bill moving along, you're right. It is moving along. And there is enough votes in the Senate. If it gets out on the floor, it can be passed. In the House, I don't know. But I'll tell you, this area, and you're running, anyone that's running for the legislator, better think twice about that. And I'll say one other thing. This is like a drop in the bucket from all the big numbers that you pointed out here. And I don't doubt, because I saw in the past, I watch what you do. I get involved. But I saw how you do try to cut, and you did. And you don't fill openings if you don't have to. I believe that. But this is a little drop in the bucket here on a blue-collar type image I'm going to put out here. The teachers, for example, they're all well paid. Today's teachers are. Maybe not when I was in school, but today, benefits. Your own presentation here showed the salaries, the pension plan, which I like another can of worms. A pension plan, including our legislators and their state workers. We're all in that same plan. We're paying for it. We're all paying for it. But where does it, you know, when it comes to the school district, it comes down to, once again, that tax bill on your home. That's what's killing us. Some people it is anyways. But this little drop in the bucket I'm going to throw out there. The teachers, for example, okay, you know, they're paid well, they go to their jobs, but don't forget, they're done, in the Pennsylvania school code calls for 180 days of actual physical teaching. Now, I know you do more than that, because there's a lot of retired teachers up here, or your spouses are teachers. I understand that. But just remember, everyone else, the Pennsylvania State Police, prison guards, everything, they are doing a complete full year of physical, labor, whatever. Where the teachers are finished pretty much after 180 days, depending on the school district, you might get 185, 182, depending on what you determine. But the law is 180 days. They still receive their pay, their salary, throughout the summer. Whether it's lump sum or they continue to get it weekly. weekly or bi-weekly, I think it is. In any event, this is a drop in the bucket. But why not have the teachers just be placed on layoff for that period of time of 13 weeks? Rather than to continue to receive your pay, it is a savings to the school district. It would be, and the salaries of the teachers are not changed. They're still making whatever they're making. Then when they're done during their layoff of the summer, they go back on the payroll. But in the meantime, the school's saving that money. And like I said, the numbers you showed here is probably a drop in the bucket. But think about it.
No, I would like to have.
What you don't understand, the teachers get paid through the summer based upon their annual salary, which is that payment for the 189 days that we have here, I believe.
Yes.
They make X number of dollars for the 189 days. They used to be paid from September to June. Now they get paid less from September to June so that they can draw pay through the summer.
Okay,
So
you just answered that then.
Anything extra for
All right,
the
but
summer.
you answered that though, sir. You said they are still getting paid throughout the summer, maybe on a lesser note.
No, they get paid less during the winter.
No.
They take it out of their pay.
Their yearly salary is like anyone else, but the weeks that they're off in the summer, you don't have to get an attitude with me. You can check your attitude at the door. They are still receiving their pay throughout the summer.
Can I say something?
You know,
It's possible.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Listen, this is the way it works. I was a teacher. This is how it works, all right? If you work 190 days, and say, well, let's make it easy. Let's say you make $19,000 a year. You get $100 every day you work. What they've done is they've opted to take that $100 a day for every day they work. They just take it in 26 bi-weekly installments. Actually, it works out for the district better from a cash flow standpoint. It works out for the teachers better, but they're going to get the $19,000 whether you pay them in the summer or you don't pay them in the summer. You're just going to pay them more for 10 months. The fact is they can't collect unemployment. Teaching is classified by the state of Pennsylvania as seasonal work. You are not permitted to sign up for unemployment. So there goes that. But really, they're not getting any more money than what they earn for their contracted year. So we can't save anybody by not doing that.
But they're physically doing work for that. You say the school district here is 189 days. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of the law that requires 180. So you're a little bit longer than some school districts.
Right.
But in any event, my other points on Senate Bill 76 and House Bill 76, I support it.
All right, well, I just wanted to say something, because I think you really misunderstood what I was trying to say.
You mean when I spoke to you at one time?
Yeah, exactly. And-
I didn't mention your name.
No.
I didn't mention your name.
I know you did.
But I know you're running for state
Yeah,
legislature.
thank you. But listen, this is what I want you to know. I believe it ought to be unconstitutional for the state of Pennsylvania to be able to take anybody's home over taxes. But as we move forward, and this is what I was trying to say here tonight, we need to make sure that public education is adequately funded. And when I read something that says that the numbers don't work and schools will be cut another $2 billion, I don't think that's where we want to go.
That was at the very start of starting this bill.
No, actually, it was just in Harrisburg. It was just again in Harrisburg, Springfield last week. That's all.
The funding, according to independent studies, though, I'm saying it has been there. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
No, thank you
very much.
Just real quick, I would benefit by that because I own a bunch of real estate. I still disagree with it. I think it's very risky. It's just dangerous. We also use the federal tax deduction on our 10 horses, which I think a lot of people in the Patriots groups are disregarding. Okay? That comes out to about $9 billion just for the state of Pennsylvania. All right? On the other point, though, I'm a little concerned about the cybersecurity. There's a lot of conversation about that. But one of the things that concerns me is Harvard is now starting to do cybersecurity. So I'm not disagreeing. I love when my son comes to this school. He has friends. I believe the socialization of going to school is something that children need to learn young and continue to do. Okay? My son started in Montessori school at 2 years old. Right? Nuns did not appreciate changing his diapers. My point is, though, I think that schools need to be cognizant of realizing that that cyber prospect needs to be more a factor in every school, regardless of whether a kid pulls out of school or not.
We are, I agree with you.
And that's my concern, is, you know, my daughter wants to become a professor, is now an assistant professor, to some degree. She's getting a little master's program going on. And I've said to her several times, I don't know exactly what you think you're going to be doing because there's so few true professors out there. It's changing and, quite honestly, dying profession for a lot of people who make a living very good. So I guess my concern is Exeter really needs to, I'm not even sure how to say this, are they cognizant of the realization that that is now going to become, you know, a part of education, and a very significant part of that. I mean, with Harvard's running classes,
Yes.
they're willing to give degrees out, with some of those degrees being developed with cyber school in mind.
As Dr. Martin said, we contracted our own cyber courses. We have an input into how those courses are conducted and what are the content of those courses. Now, we've also discussed a blended model. You've taken 4 years of Spanish, now you want to take Spanish 5. We don't have a teacher that can offer that. We've only got 2 people that are interested in it. We're looking at blending that in with the schedule so that they can go to a computer and take Spanish 5 from Harvard, you know, or wherever it might be. So it's not that we're just setting with the cyber school that we have now. That will develop into something more as time goes on. But we just got into it, and that blended learning will be something in the future that this board has discussed, and I know the administration has looked at. I have another.
My name is Frank Wilder. I have a heating or energy question. I spent a lot of time this year helping with musicals in both the junior high school and senior high school, and it seems to me some of the spaces are heated to an excess. At home, I'll be wearing something like I'm wearing right now, but when I go to work in those spaces, I really need a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. Is there some way that we can identify large spaces in our school systems and confirm or work on ways to maybe heat them and cool them more efficiently to save money?
Frank, think back to when you went to school. It's a good question, and the short answer is no. When you went to school, I think you're going right upstairs here. Come April or May, we would either be sweating our tails off or we'd be freezing to death, because with these large systems, they aren't independent. It's not independent systems throughout the building. They have to go through a summer and a winter cycle. So there are times when the classrooms are hot, and you go to the facilities folks and they, can we switch it over? Can we switch it over? No, because it takes us to switch it back. You know, it's just an institutional problem, quite frankly. And, you know, we have made good efforts toward economization on it. We try to keep it as cheap as possible, but you have to do that shift over in specific.
Well, I know at least at junior high school, it would be cold outside, so you would need heat, but it would be excessive heat in that space as opposed to maybe in the hallway or something like that.
And yet other rooms are probably too cold in that same building.
Yeah, we work at it continuously, but it's a problem. It's not easy to solve. Yes, sir.
I'm an electrician. I do a lot of control systems in different places. You're incorrect in some respect. You can do that, but it's a very expensive process. Adding VAVs, you guys know what they are.
Yes, sir.
All that. You'd have to have a lot of thermostats, a lot of controls. You have air conditioners running one part of the building, heat is running low, sun hitting the building, things like that. Would it be tremendously expensive?
What I-
That type of system.
What I would suggest is, we have a facilities committee, please come to our meeting, or contact Ken Pitts as not someone says, I want to sell you a service, but the reason we have a facilities committee is not just because we want to talk about bus garages, but because we talk about everything. We talk about roofs, we talk about drive-in falling off the senior high school, we talk about the field falling, you know, it has a natural photo degradation of a 10 to 12-year period, so we have to replace it. And that's where we get into issues of, you know, what can we do to help our systems work at a more productive level in turn of saving us money. For instance, this past month, besides, one of the issues we talked about was how can we better insulate some of our buildings. So we're looking at, you know, recalking and reglazing windows in the various schools. So that's where that topic comes in. It may be because I'm not an HVAC guy, but it may, or an MEP guy, maybe where it's in the run, you know, coming through there. But I would suggest talking with Ken Pitts, who's our facilities manager. And if you'd like to come to our facilities committee meetings, we usually have them every other month or so. We'll probably have another one in June. Please join us. We're kind of we're a less formal group. We just usually sit around, we talk about what's hot. We totally encourage everybody to participate because no one's an expert and everybody can contribute. Thank you.
Sure.
John, we're on St. Lawrence, 35 St. Lawrence Avenue. I have two things. One, I have a concern about security in the buildings. And here's what I mean by that. A couple of weeks ago, I happened to deliver handouts for our soccer group to the elementary schools. And I was greeted in 3 different manners in the building's entranceways. Inconsistencies in the way people are being left in the buildings. Okay? It may be because people know me, doesn't mean I didn't turn into a nut since the last time they met me. And I just want to make that clear, is that, you know, yesterday I may have been firing all cylinders, and today I may be firing guns, right? So I just want to make sure that the board understands that I think there's a group of parents out there that really think that security of our buildings is an utmost priority. It isn't just as simple as locking the doors during the daytime and having our children be safe during the daytime. Because right now, anybody could be walking in the front doors of this high school and staging themselves for an attack in the morning. Doors wide open, okay? So I think that a district-wide security policy of when doors are open and shut and when they're monitored and not monitored is of dire need, okay? Dire need.
Let me address your issue. I run security for St. Joseph Regional Health Network, and I just met with the administration. And I have to tell you, while you raised an issue, which is of great concern, I know, to the administration and to the board, there's really a combination of having plans in place and just good luck. And it's really a combination of both things that make a facility safe. What administrator would have thought that a 16-year-old boy would slice open the neck of a young girl in Connecticut over the rejection of a prom date? I've done a quick review with the administration on their security, and I must tell you that there's a lot that they have in place. There's a lot that maybe we could communicate to the community at large, but there's also a lot about your security that you don't want people to know. Because there are certain parts of the security plan that are critical and that are in place that people don't need to know about, because they're the tools that of surveillance, they're the tools of the things that you use to conduct investigations. But clearly, you know, one of the things that I think Mr. Kramer, who's sitting to your left there, and the district has worked on is an all-hazard staff plan, an action chart. And I was actually amazed reading this over the weekend, because I work for an organization with 16 outpatient facilities, a large campus in downtown Reading, and a very large campus in Bern Township. We have almost 1,600 employees, and we have thousands of people that come into our facility every day. So I understand your concern about people coming in and coming out and not knowing necessarily what you're dealing with, but I can tell you that the district, if anybody gets a chance, talk to your teachers or talk to the people here in the district about this process. There is a lot in place, but there are many instances where you're just not going to be able to stop what occurs. The biggest challenge that I said last Friday to these folks, your number one problem is going to come from your staff and your students. Yes, from time to time somebody will come in shooting in a building, but the majority of the issues that you're going to deal with on a day in and day out basis are with people you already know. But it is a legitimate question. I can tell you that you should engage the administration off, to the side, because there is an awful lot that they have in place. And in fact, I brought the administration today this book, which I would recommend that everybody read, which is called The Gift of Fear, because it'll change your paradigm about how you think about who might be that threat within your institution. And oftentimes, it's not the person who you think it is.
I just want to say that I used the word luck in the very beginning, and I don't want to trust having lost a child early in my days, I don't want to trust luck to anyone else but me. Okay? And what I mean by that is that, again, once again, is that I think there's inconsistencies at the building doors. I think there's a huge inconsistency just here tonight. And I don't think either district properties are secure or they're not. And you may have a policy in place, and I may not be familiar with that. I've been a little sick lately. I haven't been up on things. But I will say that luck is not something I want riding on this. You just have to understand that I think maybe some parents are pulling their kids out to go to do cyber schooling because they're afraid to have them come here. And that's a trend that could continue, because they don't want to have their children subjected to potential danger. My only other thing, and thank you for your time, I really appreciate that, but I think it's something that needs to be looked at. Secondly, high school football field, is it really in that bad a shape? Have any of you guys like run the 100 down there lately?
Yes. If you were to see the condition, it's not one of those things you readily see when you just look at the field. The problem is that over time, the phobic degradation happens into the seams where the stitching breaks down. And we've had a number of occurrences during our fall season where we had coaches approaching our coach and also our athletic director informing that they've seen seam problems where we had to get it repaired. So we had a number of repairs. The second thing that we have going on our field is it's not just a football field, and it's not just a soccer field, and it's not just a lacrosse field.
Mm-hmm.
It's an everyday activity. As soon as kids can get on there during the day, early, through gym class, through marching band, through sports, through the night. So that field gets such a high use that besides photo degradation, we have to make sure we keep maintaining.
What's the cost of a new field?
We are right now looking at what, about 570? 580?
Well, it's still less than a parking garage. I'm okay with that.
Excuse me?
It's less than a parking garage. I'm okay with that.
I couldn't understand what.
It's okay. It's less than a parking garage. I'm okay with it.
But I'll explain the bus garage also, since you brought it up. The bus garage, unfortunately, our attendance at our last meeting for our facilities committee only had about 20 people there, though it was nice to see that many people out. And the reason we've had several meetings in there was to review what's going on and what we have in place and what kind of resource we have as a facility for what we have is 60 buses in our fleet. We did a study several years ago regarding the efficiency of our bus operation compared to not only Exeter Township School District, but compared to other operations, and of whether we should be subbing this particular service out to others. What we found was that Exeter Township School District's facilities and its bus system was run in a very efficient manner. The biggest drawback on Exeter School District is we do not get reimbursed as much as a private contractor such as roads. However, with that still being the case, we are extremely efficient and run a ship that's very close to, like, you wonder how Mr. Wegman does it some days. The question in place after that was, how do we make this work going forward? The problem is that we have a bus garage that right now is on life support systems. This year we need a $65,000 roof to go on top of our, well, rumbling shack, for lack of other words. If you were to look at the outside of this building, you'd wonder why someone doesn't break into it some night and take all our brand new tires out of it. Because frankly, it's a padlock, okay? We don't have any fencing around our system, so if some days you listen to KYW, you find out that XYZ school district, they're not gonna have bus service that day because some child felt like having some fun overnight, dropping something into a gas tank. You know, we don't have that, fortunately, because we have nice, responsible students and children and live in our school district and adults. But right now we have nothing secure in our building, our buses. Next thing we looked at was, what's the length of our garage? Our garages don't even allow our mechanics to work properly on our buses correctly right now. The other thing we looked at is that we don't have a way to maintain our buses as far as cleaning them, washing them. We would say, okay, great, we need to wash our buses, we need to polish our buses, we got to look them spick and span. No, actually that helps towards our maintenance of our buses to make sure that the paint is going to continue, which is going to maintain the bus to, and something we invested in, to hundreds of thousands of dollars per bus or whatever it costs, to make sure we get the most life out of it, and at the time it ends life here, we can trade it in for further value and get something in return for that. When we looked at the possibility of taking that bus service away from Exeter and then pulling it out to see BCIU, the first thing they'll do is they'll say, oh yeah, we're gonna buy your fleet away from you. What does that do? In turn, what it does is it says, Exeter, if you ever want to get back to the bus business, guess what? That is not a possibility. We've just taken every resources out of your pocket. By having our own bus service, we give ourselves flexibility. If we have a school trip, we just contact Rick, we say, this is what's going on. Our football team has just made it to this playoff. We need buses on Friday night. We don't have to contact the bus service and say, we need to lease the buses back. We just have to pay someone overtime for that particular thing. So there are a lot of positives, but in turn, when you make that decision, you have to say, okay, what's it going to take to maintain my fleet going forward? So if I'm looking at that building, which is held together by bubble gum and rubber bands right now, I can say, what do I need? We're not looking at building a Taj Mahal, but we are looking at building a professional facility. We're looking at a facility that mimics or is very close to what they did in Wilson School District recently. However, they at Wilson noted things that did not work when they built their facility, as in width of the garages. So they know the mechanics can't work. So we're taking note of what was built at other places so we can build a facility that will work here. When we build this facility, we're looking for something that's going to have a service life of 30 to 50 years when we put something in place, minimum, because that's natural. Can we get 50 plus? Probably. But this building we have over there, Bob, how old is that building?
That building, when I was here as a high school student, that's why they kept it. We had 15 buses and they were kept there. We bought, pardon me, sir? Yeah, they were buses, but they were horse-drawn, but we had buses. So then in '74, the contractor that used to provide the buses left, and he sold us that bus barn and the buses, and they became school-owned. Very little has been done to it since then. So, like he said, we have 50 buses and 10 vans, and we're maxed out so far as capacity there. No security. We're in, the residential area has grown up around us, so we had the folks come in that lived down there a few years ago. They were very nice, but they didn't really like us. And, you know, so it just seems to be, rather than investing money in a building that really is substandard from the start, we're looking at the other one. Now, this came up 4 times since I've been on the board, and every time it has come up, and we've gotten further than we are now, quite frankly. The prioritization has come along, and we've said, okay, we'll make it for another few years on what we got. So
my intention of bringing up the remark about the high school football field as versus the transportation garage was not to get into a 20-minute discussion about the transportation garage. I was really, and I will state, I'm the past president of Exeter Youth Soccer Association. Okay, so I have a vested interest in the the soccer field, because I refuse to recognize it as a football field. They will recognize it as a soccer field, and I will say that, you know, we're very proud of that soccer field. But I also will say that you will impress the hell out of us, the taxpayers, if you will find a way to utilize our money in the wisest ways possible, okay? And that being said, it's not to be able to have the best green service in the county, and it's also not to be able to have the most impressive bus garage in the county, okay? Now maybe there's a happy, hold on, let me finish, maybe there's a happy medium there somewhere, okay? But I would just like to let you know that there are those of us that are concerned about debt service, okay, and getting that paid down, right? And there are those of us that are also concerned about security in our buildings, and there are those of us that are concerned more about education of our children than whether our buses are shiny. Thank you.
Just real quick before you go. For the 13 years I've been on this board, the issue about that bus barn hasn't been whether we have shiny buses or not. I worry every day about buses going up and down Shelbourne Road. That road scares me, and I'll tell you what, I have always thought it's an accident waiting to happen. We need to move that facility someplace where those buses can operate more safely.
I will explain what's happening right now. No, I can explain Kerr Road and I can explain Shelbourne Road from a civil engineering perspective because that's what I do.
No, just hold one
We're
second.
talking about site distance, and that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, but Mr. Dyson brought up the issue about taking it down Shelbourne Road. Explain what road they're going to go down.
He's discussing Shelbourne Road and site distance.